So me and Gina, first time we got in, she's married to the director, so what am I gonna say? I don't think I want to do that. And she's like, come on, Sam, let's go. So we do it.
Hollywood's highest-grossing actor of all time has a secret. For decades, while he was becoming a legend, Samuel L. Jackson was keeping a private list. It wasn't a list of movies he wanted to make or directors he wanted to work with. It was a list of the incredible women who captured his imagination, women so powerful and beautiful they became his ultimate on-set fantasies. These are the 7 actresses Samuel L. Jackson secretly wanted to sleep with. Pam Grier. Long before Samuel L. Jackson was a household name, there was Pam Grier. In the 1970s, she wasn't just an actress. She was a revolution in motion, cinema's first female action star. Grier became a superstar by playing strong, fearless women who took control and didn't ask for permission. In movies like Coffee and Foxy Brown, she was the ultimate hero, a woman who could be both incredibly tough and unbelievably sexy. She became famous for taking down bad guys while looking amazing, creating some of the most iconic swimsuit moments in film history. In Coffee, a scene of her in a simple swimsuit became legendary, not just because she looked stunning, but because it showed a woman who was confident and completely in charge of her own power. She was the foxy lady of the 70s, and young actors like Samuel L. Jackson were watching and taking notes. For him, Pam Grier was more than a crush. She was the definition of cool. She was a one-woman hit squad who proved that a woman could outfight any man, and she did it with style. She was so powerful at the box office that her movie Coffee knocked James Bond out of the #1 spot. For years, this admiration was just a fantasy, something he watched on a big screen. But then, Quentin Tarantino gave him the chance of a lifetime. In 1997, Jackson was cast as the gunrunner Ordell Robbie in the movie Jackie Brown. And who was playing the title character, Jackie Brown? None other than Pam Grier herself. The fantasy was about to become a reality. On screen, their chemistry was electric. Jackson played Ordell as a sociopathic but charming criminal who was both obsessed with and terrified of Jackie. He was a dangerous man who would kill anyone who got in his way, but she was always one step ahead of him, using her intelligence and charm to outsmart him at every turn. This on-screen dynamic felt so real because, in many ways, it was. Jackson was finally face-to-face with the woman he had admired for decades. He channeled all that fascination into his performance, making Ordell's obsession with Jackie feel genuine. It was clear that even the great Quentin Tarantino was a huge fan. When Grier came to read for the part, his office was covered in posters from her old movies. The set was relaxed and creative, giving both actors room to build their intense characters. During one rehearsal for a particularly tense scene, Grier had to press a fake gun into Jackson's crotch. Because of safety rules, she couldn't use the real prop gun until the cameras were rolling, so she had to use her hand instead. She later joked about the moment, saying she told Sam she was sorry and didn't know his parts were way down there. That playful energy off-screen translated into a dangerous dance on-screen. Jackson wasn't just acting opposite a co-star, he was acting opposite a legend, the woman who had set the standard for cool. The desire to be near that power, to challenge it, and to be captivated by it was written all over his face. Gina Davis.
It's just kind of wacky, kind of private detective, kind of crazy dude, Mitch Hennessy from Long Kiss Goodnight.
Really? That's
Love
your
that
jam?
movie, man.
If his fantasy for Pam Grier was built on years of admiration from afar, his next obsession was forged in the heat of a fiery explosion with a woman who was two people in one. In 1996, Samuel L. Jackson starred in The Long Kiss Goodnight alongside Gina Davis, and their on-screen chemistry was so powerful it practically carried the entire movie. The story was wild. Davis played Samantha Kane, a sweet small-town schoolteacher with amnesia. She was a loving mother and a kind neighbor. But after a car accident, a different person started to emerge. This new person was Charlie Baltimore, a deadly expert CIA assassin. This transformation was the heart of the movie and the core of her incredible appeal. The film was a modest feminist triumph, with Davis joining the ranks of action icons like Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley as a maternal figure whose violence was rooted in empathy as much as anger. Jackson played Mitch Hennessy, a low-rent private detective who at first doesn't believe her story. But as he watches this quiet schoolteacher expertly handle knives, assemble sniper rifles, and take down trained killers, he becomes her only ally. The witty banter between them was a highlight of the film, a perfect dance of comedy and tension written by the legendary Shane Black. But it was more than just good dialogue. There was a real connection there, forged in brutal conditions both on and off screen. In one of the movie's most intense scenes, Samantha is tortured by being repeatedly drowned in freezing water until her memories as Charlie come flooding back. Through it all, Jackson's character was the one who stood by her. He saw her at her most vulnerable and at her most powerful. The fantasy for Jackson was right there on screen. He was drawn to the woman with a hidden, dangerous strength. He was fascinated by her ability to be both a loving mother and a cold-blooded killer. This duality made her irresistible. The danger wasn't just for the cameras. For one stunt, both Jackson and Davis had to jump into a real lake where the temperature was 37 degrees below zero. They had to do the take 5 times, getting submerged in the icy water over and over. Jackson said the pain was so intense it felt like his brain was freezing, and Davis said it was like being hit with a sledgehammer. Going through that brutal experience together created a real bond. Off-screen, Geena Davis was just as bold. She famously wore a controversial satin mini dress to the 1992 Oscars that caused a huge stir, proving she wasn't afraid to take risks. On the set of The Long Kiss Goodnight, Jackson got a front row seat to a woman who could transform from an everyday mom into an action hero, and who was tough enough to endure anything. For him, it was the ultimate thrill. Scarlett Johansson.
I really love being around Scarlett. We've done several films together, and it's always great to, put our costumes on and get back in that big Marvel playground.
Geena Davis showed him the thrill of a woman with a dangerous secret. But what about a woman you have to trust with your life, day in and day out, for over a decade? That's where the ultimate work wife comes in. Samuel L. Jackson and Scarlett Johansson have one of the longest and most trusted partnerships in Hollywood, a bond that started long before they saved the world as Avengers. Their first time sharing the screen was in the 2008 comic book movie, The Spirit, a disastrous but visually unique film written and directed by Frank Miller. In that film, Johansson played Silken Floss, the seductive and sadistic accomplice to Jackson's villain, the Octopus. The movie was a campy, over-the-top neo-noir that failed at the box office, but it gave them their first taste of working together. Jackson was perfectly cast as the dastardly villain, and Johansson understood the strange, deadpan tone, playing his perversely innocent and deadly right-hand woman. It was a strange start, but it established a dynamic that would define their future partnership. That dynamic would evolve into something much deeper when they both joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow, they became the backbone of the Avengers. In a world of gods, monsters, and super soldiers, Fury was the paranoid spy who trusted almost no one. But the one person he always trusted, the one colleague he could always count on, was Natasha. Their on-screen relationship was built on a foundation of mutual respect and a fun, easy chemistry. They didn't have big romantic scenes. Instead, they had something more powerful, an unbreakable bond forged in the shadows of espionage and world-ending threats. This trust is the ultimate fantasy. While the world saw Scarlett Johansson as a global sex symbol, a woman famous for her stunning looks and iconic bikini photos, Jackson got to see a different side of her. He saw the dedicated professional, the loyal partner, the woman he could trust with the fate of the planet. When he honored her at an award ceremony, he didn't just call her a great actress. He called her a cinematic beauty, a perfect description for a woman who was as captivating for her talent as she was for her looks. For over 10 years, Jackson had the best of both worlds. He had the most desired woman in the world as his trusted partner, a work wife who was both deadly and dependable. It was a fantasy partnership that played out in the biggest movies ever made. Brie Larson.
She had a life worth living.
Right.
That she was a strong person, that she did accomplish things, that she was this force of nature of her own.
Trust was the foundation with Scarlett. But with the next woman on his list, it wasn't just about trust. It was about protection. A fierce, almost primal need to defend a woman who was strong enough to save the universe, but needed a friend to save her from the world. The friendship between Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson is one of the most genuine in Hollywood, but it wasn't born out of an easy film shoot. It was forged in hardship. The two became close friends on the set of the 2017 movie Kong Skull Island, an experience that Jackson said was not the most wonderful for either of them. The filming took them to remote and difficult locations, from the dense jungles of Queensland, Australia, to the far-flung corners of northern Vietnam, where the crew had to be transported by helicopter and boat. Because they were both having a hard time, they leaned on each other and a powerful bond was formed. That bond became a lifeline for Larson. A short time later, while they were working on her movie Unicorn Store, the 2016 presidential election happened. Larson was heartbroken by the results, and Jackson stepped in to be her rock. He told her, "Don't let them break you. You have to be strong now." So when Marvel came calling and offered her the role of Captain Marvel, the first person she called for advice was Jackson. She asked him if she should do it, and he didn't hesitate. He said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." He knew she was strong enough for the part, but he also knew she would face backlash. And he was right. After she was cast, a wave of online trolls attacked her for being a strong woman with an opinion. But Jackson wasn't having it. He went to war for her, publicly defending her against what he called incel dudes who hate strong women. His defense was passionate and fierce. He saw her true strength, and he was enraged that others were trying to tear her down. While the internet was busy looking at her bikini photos and making superficial judgments, Jackson saw the warrior underneath. His desire wasn't just a simple crush, it was a deep admiration for her resilience and an intense protective instinct to be her champion. He was drawn to her power, and he was ready to fight anyone who tried to diminish it. Emilia Clarke.
Favorite Sam Jackson moment that you've had with him through this experience?
Oh my goodness. Well, I nearly ran him over. That was interesting.
How did he react?
He was very gentlemanly and lovely and nice.
But the next actress on his list left him so starstruck he could barely speak. And she almost ended his career in the most unexpected way possible. When Emilia Clarke, the mother of dragons from Game of Thrones, was cast in the Marvel series Secret Invasion alongside Samuel L. Jackson, she was terrified. She admitted that during her very first scene with the legend, she was so starstruck and so scared. She was so nervous that the only words she could say were her lines from the script. She just kept repeating them over and over. Jackson, who has worked with everyone in Hollywood, saw her intense focus and thought she was being a serious method actor. He told her, "Oh, she's a very, very professional. We are methoding it up. Fine. You want to play? Let's do it." He had no idea she was just frozen with fear. This created a fascinating dynamic. The veteran actor, who had seen it all, was genuinely intrigued by this newcomer's intensity. He was captivated by her, even if he didn't know the real reason for it. But their relationship took a dramatic turn during a scene where Clarke had to drive a car. As she told an interviewer later, "I nearly ran him over." The car was an old Russian Lada with a confusing setup of multiple shift knobs and pedals that she compared to a tractor. Under pressure to get the shot, she got behind the wheel, But when the time came to stop, she hit the accelerator instead of the brake. She managed to find the right pedal just in time, narrowly avoiding a collision with Jackson, who she said was a complete gentleman about the whole thing. After the near disaster, she cried a little and let someone else drive. This chaotic moment became a hilarious bonding experience that broke the ice between them. Jackson was dealing with a woman who had survived the brutal world of Game of Thrones, a show where she was often pressured into doing controversial nude scenes and dealt with the dark side of fame, including horrible stalkers. She was a survivor, a powerful force of nature who was both terrified of him and almost took him out with a car. For Jackson, this was a combination he had never seen before. The fascination was immediate. She wasn't just another co-star, she was a starstruck surprise who kept him on his toes. Viola Davis. Emilia Clarke was a surprise that left him speechless. But there is another type of actress that commands a different kind of silence. Not from fear, but from pure, undeniable respect for a power so immense you can only dream of sharing a screen with it. For Samuel L. Jackson, that actress is Viola Davis. What's shocking about this entry on his fantasy list is that they have never had a major on-screen collaboration. And that's exactly what makes the fantasy so powerful. His desire to work with Viola Davis is a deep, artistic longing. It's the ultimate professional what if. He has watched from the sidelines as she became one of the most celebrated actresses of her generation, a woman of incredible talent and even more incredible strength. Their mutual respect is clear. In a conversation for Variety's Actors on Actors series, the two sat down and talked like old friends, sharing stories about their early days in the New York theater scene and the struggles they faced. They understood each other's journey because they had walked similar paths. Jackson talked about how after his first movie role, he didn't get another one for 10 years, forcing him to focus on the work itself. Davis shared that she took on many small, crappy jobs because she just loved to act and had to deal with the hardships of the business. Davis spoke openly about her incredibly difficult childhood, growing up in poverty and witnessing her father abuse her mother. She and her sisters were also victims of sexual abuse, and she was constantly bullied by classmates as a child. She talked about fighting her way through a Hollywood system that often told her she was too black to be a leading lady. She overcame every obstacle to become an Oscar-winning titan of the industry. This is the kind of strength that Jackson is drawn to. He has spent his career playing powerful men, but he has always been most captivated by powerful women. The fantasy of working with Viola Davis is not just about sharing a screen. It's about meeting his equal. It's the dream of two legends who came from similar beginnings, finally coming together to create something unforgettable. It's a desire born not of attraction, but of pure, unadulterated respect for her craft and her spirit. Aunjanue Ellis. He dreamed of working with Viola Davis, a true titan of the industry. But there's one more name on his list, a quiet storm of an actress whose powerful performances have made her one of the most respected and desired talents in Hollywood. That woman is Aunjanue Ellis. Like with Viola Davis, Jackson's fascination with Ellis seems to be one of professional admiration from a distance. She is the one that got away in his career, a talent he has come close to working with but has never shared a scene with. She was in the orbit of his film The Banker, but they didn't have any screen time together, making the fantasy of a true collaboration even more potent. Aunjanue Ellis is not a typical Hollywood star. She is a woman of quiet confidence and immense depth. Born in San Francisco, she was raised by her grandmother on a farm in Mississippi, and she carries a sense of history and authenticity in every role she plays. Her mother was a civil rights activist who was kicked out of college for protesting. This background of strength and conviction shines through in her work. She is a critically acclaimed, Oscar-nominated powerhouse known for playing women of incredible conviction, from her breakout role in Men of Honor to her fiery performance as a background singer in Ray, and her Emmy-nominated turn as the mother of Yusuf Salam in When They See Us. Her portrayal of Oracene Price in King Richard earned her an Academy Award nomination and was called her magnum opus by some critics. Her personal life is just as compelling. She is openly bisexual, but she never made a grand announcement about it. When she wore a jacket with the word queer stitched on it to an awards show, she was surprised no one commented on it. When asked why she hadn't come out publicly before, she simply said it was because nobody asked. That quiet, unshakable sense of self is exactly what makes her so captivating. She doesn't need the spotlight to know who she is. For a veteran like Samuel L. Jackson, who has seen every kind of Hollywood personality, this kind of quiet strength is rare and incredibly attractive. She represents the critic's choice on his fantasy list, a woman whose talent is so raw and undeniable that you can't help but be in awe of it. The desire to work with Anjanou Ellis is the desire to witness that quiet storm up close, to see what happens when her incredible talent meets his on screen.